There's a line with everything in life. There's a line. I think he crossed the line from a hit guy and became a serial killer.
But listen, he was, they were a rough crew in that regard, no doubt.
And I said, did you hear what he said? Yeah. I said, bro, the guy lost his mind.
Right.
He's sitting here fantasizing about killing a bunch of old people.
Comparable to Murder Incorporated, way back when.
This was the Gemini Lounge back in the day, and this was the headquarters of Roy DeMeo.
You stop with that camera already, Freddie. This guy's nuts. Freddie, will you stop? I'm gonna shoot you.
Did you meet my friend Ben? He's one of the Dover brothers.
Ben Dover?
Dover.
Yeah, I think I had the machine on a little while.
The Gambino crime family soldier oversaw a bloodthirsty crew of killers that was eyed in as many as 200 gangland murders from the 1970s to the early 1980s. DeMeo was a butcher's apprentice who found his true calling in the ranks of New York City's underworld. The mobster would eventually become too violent to live. First, let's take a look at the upbringings of this notorious hitman. Roy Albert DeMeo was born on September 7, 1940 in Flatlands, Brooklyn, to a working-class Italian immigrant family from Naples, Italy. This is notable as the mob overwhelmingly preferred Sicilian Italians in their ranks. Roy was the fourth of 5 children of Eleanor, a housewife, and Antonio Joseph DeMeo, a laundry company deliveryman. DeMeo graduated from James Madison High School in 1959, during which time he began earning money as a loan shark. Interestingly, future presidential candidate Bernie Sanders were among his graduating year classmates. Between the ages of 15 and 22, DeMeo also worked at a local grocery store, where he trained as an apprentice butcher. Roy experienced a lot of death during his adolescence. When Roy was 18, his older brother Anthony DeMeo was killed in action during the Korean War. His father died of a heart attack in 1960 when Roy was 19, and Roy's mother immediately left back to Italy with Roy's youngest brother. Roy DeMeo was initially an associate of the Flatlands Canarsie faction of the Lucchese crime family, which controlled tow truck companies, junkyards, and car theft operations in that section of Brooklyn. Anthony Gaggi, a soldier in the Gambino crime family, noticed DeMeo in 1966 and told him that he could make even more money with his successful business if he came to work directly for the Gambinos. Through the late 1960s, DeMeo's organized crime prospects increased on 2 fronts. He continued in the loan sharking business with Gaggi and began developing a crew of young men involved in car theft. It was this collective of criminals that became known both in the underworld and in law enforcement circles as the DeMeo crew. The first member of the DeMeo crew was 16-year-old Chris Rosenberg, who met DeMeo in 1966 when he was dealing marijuana at a Canarsie gas station. DeMeo helped Rosenberg increase his business and profits by loaning him money so that he could deal in larger amounts. By 1972, Rosenberg had introduced his friends to DeMeo and they began working for him as well. The additional members of the crew came to include Joseph Testa, Anthony Center, Frederick Dynome, Henry Borelli, Joseph Dracula Guglielmo, Vito Arena, and Carlo Profeta. DeMeo killed his first man in 1973, Paul Rothenberg, New York's premier distributor of pornographic movies who made extortion payments to DeMeo and Nino. 3 weeks before, authorities had raided Rothenberg's film processing business and questioned him about his bank checks to DeMeo. Nino ordered the hit. DeMeo tailed and led Rothenberg into an alley in Roslyn, Long Island, and fired a silenced .38 caliber handgun twice into his head. That first roobout invigorated DeMeo's simmering sociopathic demeanor. As a former butcher's assistant, DeMeo bragged of possessing the skills to slice, chop, and dismember hit victims for easy, unseen disposal. His perfected way of murdering and packaging bodies was named the Gemini method for the location and procedures used. The site of the butchering was the Gemini Lounge, a locals bar he secretly owned on Flatlands Avenue in the Canarsie area of East Brooklyn. Hit targets unknowingly entered a door outside the bar into a flat rented by gang member Joseph Guglielmo, nicknamed Dracula. Dracula's apartment was a slaughterhouse, otherwise known as Horror Hotel. Inside, DeMeo's murder toolkit included guns, ropes, knives, ice picks, and various accoutrements for carving, chopping, and sawing. Victims of the ritual-like Gemini method would first suffer a suppressed gunshot to the head. Then, as former DeMeo associate turned witness Dominic Montiglio testified in court, somebody would wrap a towel around to stop the blood, and somebody would stab him in the heart to stop the blood from pumping. The guys, some clad only in underwear to avoid stains, would drag the body to the bathroom, let it bleed out down the shower drain, then put the corpse on a swimming pool liner spread in the living room, cut the body up, place the pieces in plastic bags, and finally in separate cardboard boxes for delivery to Brooklyn's Fountain Avenue dump. In one case, DeMeo reportedly inserted a man's severed head into a trash compactor. Arena later testified in federal court about when DeMeo and another shooter killed 2 unsuspecting car ring members inside a dark building in 1979. Roy said, "We have to cut them up," Arena said. Then, during the dismemberment session of the victims, Roy instructed me and Henry, Borelli, believe it or not, to go and buy some pizza. DeMeo's mantra was no body, no crime. But his glaring personality flaws, his rashness and dread, as the police and U.S. Attorney's office closed in, finally enveloped him. When an 18-year-old door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesman came to DeMeo's house, DeMeo, believing the college kid was a Cuban drug cartel hitman from an ongoing dispute, fired shots at him. As the terrified youth attempted to drive away, DeMeo drove after him and, in public, before horrified witnesses, leapt from his car and shot and killed him. Nino took notice of DeMeo's misstep of murdering an innocent civilian. Then Arena, a hitman DeMeo had hired, started singing. When DeMeo got another grand jury order to testify in late 1982, Castellano had seen enough. In the underworld, whacking a snitch, a degenerate gambler, or a wise guy who broke the rules is one thing. A college student, that's something else altogether. DeMeo's death occurred at the start of the great fall of New York's 5 crime families during the 1980s. Vito Arena flipped and started singing like a canary. DeMeo was subpoenaed in late 1982, and by that time Gambino chieftain Paul Big Paulie Castellano had seen enough, and Roy knew it. Roy began carrying a sawed-off shotgun by his side everywhere he went. The 42-year-old DeMeo was lured to a garage in Brooklyn that his gang had used. There he met with his mentor Nino Gaggi, now a Gambino capo. Roy DeMeo barely had his coat off when Gaggi and other crew members pumped scores of bullets into his body, 7 of them into his head. But his minions didn't make DeMeo, one of the most psychopathic killers in mob history, disappear. They left his corpse in the trunk of his 1983 Cadillac and parked it at a marina. In June 1989, 7 members of DeMeo's crew were convicted of racketeering. 2 of his former buddies in murder, Anthony Center and Joseph Testa, were among 5 also found guilty of participating in 11 slayings. Center, DeMeo's right-hand man, who once chopped a body into 9 pieces for disposal, and Testa each got life sentences plus 20 years in federal prison. The Roy DeMeo crew is the most violent crew ever prosecuted in federal court, as far as my knowledge, Assistant U.S. Attorney William Mack Jr. said after the sentencing, adding that DeMeo engaged in wholesale murder.